Usually when we think about a time machine, we picture uh, blinking lights, maybe a modified DeLorean.
Right, some incredibly complex physics equations scrawled across a chalkboard somewhere.
Exactly. We think of something highly experimental and, probably a little dangerous.
A classic science fiction staple,
Yeah.
usually tucked away in a secret government lab.
Yeah. But today, we are stepping into a very different kind of time machine. One that looks, well, entirely ordinary.
Right, in plain sight.
Right. Imagine walking into a modern, sprawling, perfectly manicured corporate headquarters. You walk through these automatic glass doors, the lobby is sleek, there's an espresso bar, people are walking around with the latest tablets.
Sounds like any Fortune 500 company today.
It does. And yet, operationally speaking, the absolute second you badge in, you are instantly transported 30 years into the past.
It is a phenomenal illusion. I mean, the architecture is modern, the revenue is modern, but the internal mechanics are running on pure nostalgia.
Nostalgia and deeply entrenched habits.
Ye-
So welcome to our latest deep dive. Today we are opening up a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got behind-the-scenes accounts, project logs, and raw notes from a massive $300 million corporate digital transformation project.
That is a staggering amount of money for one initiative.
It's wild.
Okay.
And our mission for today, we're going to explore exactly what happens when modern absolute data logic crashes headfirst into a 30-year-old legacy manufacturing giant.
And this is just a perfect case study for anyone interested in how large systems actually operate.
Oh, absolutely.
It really reveals the invisible friction that exists inside almost every major institution.
Yeah, and we really want to frame this for you, the listener, because whether you are, say, a manager trying to introduce a simple new workflow app to your team, or you're just incredibly curious why massive, well-funded corporations struggle so hard to innovate.
Which they always do.
They really do. This deep dive is going to reveal something crucial. We always assume the biggest hurdle to modernization is the technology itself.
Right, we assume the software is too complex or, the integration is too messy.
Exactly. But the sources make it crystal clear. The code usually compiles just fine. It's human nature that throws the error messages.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand this intense resistance to change, we first have to understand the environment the innovator in our sources was walking into.
Right.
From the project notes, this company is not failing, not even close.
No, they bring in hundreds of millions of dollars a year,
Yeah.
billions in their local currency. They are an absolute titan in legacy manufacturing.
But they are entirely stuck in the past.
Totally stuck. So the person brought in to lead this transformation, the innovator whose logs we were reading, they had one clear mandate: install a digital twin mindset across the entire global operation.
Which is a concept that sounds, incredibly futuristic.
It really does.
But it is rapidly becoming the baseline for modern industrial operations. At its core, a digital twin is a real-time functioning digital replica of an entire physical operation.
Okay, let's ground that a bit. What does that actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon at a massive factory?
Well, imagine a facility the size of 4 football fields. You have heavy machinery, miles of conveyor belts.
Just constant noise and motion.
Exactly. Fleets of forklifts, constant shipments arriving at the loading docks. A digital twin means every single one of those elements is equipped with sensors and data points.
Wow, every single one.
Right. So the physical activity is perfectly mirrored on a digital dashboard.
So you can see everything from a screen.
Yeah, exactly. If a specific boiler in Sector 4 starts running, say, 5 degrees too hot, the dashboard shows it instantly.
That's incredible.
Or if a truck is stuck in traffic 2 hours away, the system recalculates the production line timing automatically.
So you aren't relying on a foreman to just walk the floor and report back.
No, not at all. You are seeing the entire ecosystem breathe in real time.
That level of visibility sounds amazing. But it also raises a pretty obvious question for me.
Which is,
If this legacy company is already making billions of dollars relying on foremen walking the floor, why spend $300 million to fix something that clearly isn't broken?
that is the exact trap of what we call organizational inertia.
Organizational inertia.
Yeah. Massive financial success actually breeds a very specific kind of blindness.
How so?
Well, when a company has been printing money for 3 decades, doing things the exact same way, the leadership looks at the bottom line and assumes their operational structure is bulletproof. They confuse financial momentum with structural stability.
That makes a lot of sense. I was actually thinking about this while reading through the project notes. It's It's like driving a beautifully restored vintage car down the highway at 100 miles per hour.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. From the outside, anyone watching you drive by is thinking, wow, what an impressive, expensive machine.
The paint is flawless.
Exactly. But inside the cabin, you have no seatbelts,
Yeah.
you have no anti-lock brakes, there is no GPS.
Just you and the road.
Yeah, the driver's just white-knuckling the wheel, navigating entirely by gut feeling and, like, the sound of the engine.
That analogy holds up perfectly. Because as long as the road is perfectly straight and the global economy is perfectly stable, that driver feels like an absolute genius.
Right. They don't think they need a GPS.
But the moment there's a detour, say, a massive global supply chain disruption or a sudden spike in raw material
Which
costs.
happens all the time now.
Exactly. That gut feeling isn't going to save them from a catastrophic crash. The digital twin is the modern safety system they desperately need before they hit a wall they can't see coming.
Wait, if this GPS is so perfect and the safety system is so absolutely necessary, why do the project logs describe the executives actively trying to rip the dashboard out of the car?
Because it's terrifying to them.
You'd assume the leadership would be thrilled to finally have real-time visibility, but they fought it.
That is where we transition from a technology problem to a deeply entrenched human problem.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah. Introducing perfect visibility into a culture that has survived on opacity, well, it triggers a full-blown internal war.
Turning on a digital twin inside a legacy company is essentially like suddenly flipping on the massive stadium lights during a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek.
That is exactly it. And the players are not going to thank you for the illumination.
Not at all. Think about the old guard mentioned in the sources. These are veterans who have been running their specific departments for 20 or 30 years.
They practically built the place.
Right. They have built their entire careers around knowing where the dark corners are. They know exactly how to obscure a delayed shipment or how to, pad their production numbers so a manufacturing bottleneck doesn't look like their fault.
And then suddenly, click, the stadium lights are on.
And there is nowhere left to hide.
Right. The objective logic of the data crashes straight into the ego of the middle management.
It's totally a clash of egos.
In a 30-year-old legacy culture, information is the ultimate currency.
I know something you don't know, therefore I am indispensable.
Precisely. A veteran manager's value is often tied up in their personal, undocumented knowledge of how the factory actually runs.
Like knowing which machine needs to be kicked to start working.
Exactly. They know that machine number 4 always jams on Thursdays if you run it past 80% capacity.
Which isn't written down anywhere.
It's just in their head. The digital twin project wasn't just installing software, it was actively extracting that localized knowledge and giving it to an impartial dashboard.
Which, to a veteran who has spent their whole adult life climbing that specific corporate ladder, doesn't feel like an upgrade at all.
No, not one bit.
It feels like a targeted threat to their survival.
This illustrates a concept that shows up constantly in these types of sources. We call it the digital twin paradox.
The digital twin paradox.
Yeah. The very tool designed to optimize the business to make the entire enterprise more resilient creates intense, visceral fear among the leaders tasked with using it.
Because they're terrified of transparency.
Exactly, because if a centralized dashboard can instantly tell the CEO exactly what's wrong on the factory floor in real time.
What do they need the veteran plant manager for?
Exactly. Their gut feeling is obsolete.
Okay, but how does that fear actually manifest? The sources say the data-driven logic felt like an attack, but a plant manager can't just stand up in a meeting and say, I refuse to use this software because it proves I'm obsolete.
No, they would never say that out loud.
So how do they actually fight the tech?
They fight it through shadow systems and manufactured doubt.
Shadow system?
Yeah, a classic old guard workaround is the shadow Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, wow.
So the digital twin might be pulling live sensor data showing a line is operating at a 20% deficit.
Objective data.
Right. But the veteran manager will walk into the weekly review with their own manually updated, heavily doctored spreadsheet that shows they are only at a 2% deficit.
Just completely denying reality.
And they will argue that the new sensors are calibrated incorrectly or that the software just doesn't understand the nuance of their specific department.
So they weaponize their legacy status against the data. Like, trust my 30 years of experience, not this new computer.
They do. And it puts the innovator in an incredibly difficult position.
I can imagine.
You have a $300 million objective to build a system that will secure the company's future, and your biggest roadblock is a guy named Bob who is manually altering supply chain metrics so his quarterly bonus isn't impacted.
That is wild when you consider the scale of the capital involved here.
It's incredibly common, though.
You really can't just install the software, send out a company-wide memo, and walk away.
Not if you want it to actually work.
So what does this all mean? If you know the old guard views your data as an existential threat, and they are actively running shadow spreadsheets to discredit your system, how do you actually get the tech implemented?
Well, you have to stop acting like a coder and start acting like a psychologist.
A psychologist?
Yes. The innovator leading this project came to a very stark realization that really forms the core of our deep dive today.
Okay.
Digital transformation is 20% technology and 80% psychology.
80%. That seems incredibly high for a project that relies on complex sensor networks and cloud computing architecture.
I know, but the ratio holds up when you look at the failure rates of these initiatives. If you do not manage the people, the software literally does not matter.
It's just a waste of money.
It will sit unused.
Yeah.
Or worse, it will be actively sabotaged.
Right.
To get past the shadow spreadsheets, the innovator in our sources details relying heavily on what they call a chill philosophy.
Yes, I flagged that in the notes too, that chill philosophy.
It's fascinating.
But honestly, that sounds incredibly passive for a high-stakes deployment. I mean, if a legacy manager is screaming at you in a boardroom that your data is garbage, how does just sitting there calmly fix the software adoption issue?
Well, it isn't about being passive. It's about tactical emotional detachment.
Tactically emotional detachment.
Okay.
Explain that.
Let's look at a concrete scenario derived from these project logs.
Sure.
You are the innovator. You are sitting in a high-level executive meeting. A 30-year veteran manager points at your new dashboard and loudly declares that it's completely wrong.
That it doesn't reflect reality.
Right, and that you don't understand how the business really works.
I mean, my instinct would be to pull up the raw server logs right then and there and prove mathematically that they are wrong.
And if you do that, you lose.
I lose.
Absolutely. If you use the data to humiliate the veteran in front of the executive team, you have made a permanent enemy.
All because of their ego.
Yes. They will spend the next year finding ways to break your system. The chill philosophy means absorbing that emotional blow without reacting defensively.
So what do you do instead?
You sit in that boardroom and you say, that's a really interesting discrepancy. The sensors are picking up a high variance on your line. Let's sit down privately tomorrow and figure out why the tech is misreading your floor.
Oh, wow. You give them an out.
Exactly.
You blame the tech in public to save their ego.
Yes. You recognize that they aren't actually mad at the dashboard. They are panicking because they feel exposed.
That is so smart.
The chill philosophy is the prerequisite for the real work, which is corporate diplomacy. You have to translate the objective data into a language that serves their self-interest.
But how does that diplomacy play out practically? Like, how do you get them to actually drop the shadow spreadsheet?
By showing them the data before anyone else sees it.
Pre-meetings.
Yes, the sources detail how the implementation team would hold these pre-meetings. Before the big Thursday executive review, the innovator would go to the veteran manager on Tuesday.
Just one-on-one.
Right. They would show them the digital twin dashboard in private. They would say, look, the data is going to show a 15% inefficiency on your line this week.
Which is the bad news.
Right. But it also shows that your equipment is severely outdated. So when we go into the executive meeting on Thursday, you can use this dashboard to prove to the CEO that you urgently need a budget increase for new machines.
That is brilliant.
Isn't it?
You are taking the exact same data point that felt like a threat, and you are reframing it as a weapon they can use to get more resources.
Exactly. You aren't selling technical efficiency anymore.
You are selling psychological safety.
And that is the 80% psychology in action. Change management at this scale is just high-stakes corporate diplomacy.
You're like an ambassador.
You are an ambassador from the future trying to negotiate a peace treaty with the past.
Wow.
You have to give the old guard a way to own the new system. Let them take credit for the efficiencies the digital twin uncovers. Let their famous gut feeling be the thing that supposedly guided the data to the right conclusion.
It sounds utterly exhausting, honestly.
Oh, it's marathon.
You're trying to build a state-of-the-art, data-driven nervous system for a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise. And the vast majority of your energy is spent just like massaging egos and choreographing pre-meetings so middle management doesn't feel obsolete.
That is the daily, grueling reality of the corporate time machine. You are dragging a 30-year-old culture into the present, one bruised ego at a time.
It really synthesizes the core message jumping out of all these project logs. Changing a company's code is fundamentally a straightforward task.
It's binary.
Right, you hire developers, you map the architecture, and the software either runs or it doesn't. But changing a company's culture,
That's the real challenge.
that requires navigating decades of hidden resentments, power struggles, and survival instincts.
Because the data is impartial. A machine is running hot or it isn't. A supply chain is delayed or it isn't.
But the people,
The people tasked with managing that data are inherently biased. They will bend reality to preserve their authority, and they often do it unconsciously because their entire identity is wrapped up in the old way of doing things.
so, for you listening, whether you are spearheading a massive digital transformation across a global enterprise, or, you are just trying to convince your stubborn coworkers to migrate to a new product management platform,
Keep this 80-20 rule in mind.
keep this 80-20 psychological rule front and center. The next time you face completely irrational, fiery pushback on a tool that is objectively better, just take a step back.
Yeah.
Remember, they probably aren't rejecting the technology, they are rejecting the transparency.
That is the perfect takeaway. If you don't address the fear of the transparency, you will never get them to touch the technology.
Absolutely.
But looking at all these sources, it leaves me with a thought that really stretches the boundaries of what we've unpacked today.
Oh, where does this go next? I mean, if we've already solved the human element.
Well, we haven't solved it, we've just learned how to manage it.
Fair point.
But consider the trajectory of this technology. Right now, a digital twin is focused on mapping factory floor efficiency. The machines, the trucks, the conveyor belts.
The physical stuff.
Right. But if a modern corporation is ultimately just a complex web of human psychology, ego, and hidden power struggles, what happens when the software evolves?
What do you mean?
With the rapid rise of advanced behavioral analytics and AI, what happens when the digital twin stops just mapping the machines and starts mapping the internal political maneuvering of the old guard itself?
Wait, you're talking about mapping the human behavior, tracking the office politics?
Exactly. If we know that digital transformation is 80% psychology, the next logical step for the software is to analyze that psychology.
Oh my goodness.
Could the ultimate corporate software eventually simulate and preempt human gut feeling entirely?
That is wow.
Imagine a system that knows historically that a specific manager always delays bad news until Friday afternoons.
Or that a certain department always fabricates a 2% margin of error.
Right. Could the digital twin automatically adjust for human ego in its predictive models?
That is simultaneously fascinating and genuinely unsettling.
It really is.
Because at that point, you aren't just turning on the stadium lights during a game of hide and seek. The computer is actively playing the game.
And it mathematically knows exactly where everyone is going to hide before they even start running.
It bypasses the need for corporate diplomacy altogether because the system already accounts for the sabotage.
The corporate time machine might eventually pull everyone into the future, completely neutralizing the friction of human nature along the way.
I think that is the perfect place to leave it. We've gone from riding shotgun in a vintage car with no seatbelts, entirely reliant on a driver's flawed gut feeling, to a near future where the car might just map the driver's psychology better than the driver can.
It's a massive shift in how we think about organizational change.
And definitely something for you to chew on the next time you badge into the office and face resistance to a new idea. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.